fear and horror are an appropriate response.
Which I know very well, so I've lived in London most of my grown-up life.
There is no other reason to be given why you have not gone to hell.
I think he should apologise.
O sinner!
We have a shattered world around us. We must strive for a sane and just peace.
You hang by a slender thread with the flames of divine wrath flashing about it, ready every moment to singe it. Nothing of your own, nothing that you have ever done, nothing that you can do to induce God to spare you one moment.
Which I know very well, so I've lived in London most of my grown-up life.
And I think he just continues to incite hatred and prejudice.
Consider the fearful danger you are in.
This is a journey into a lunatic asylum.
We have a terrific task ahead of us. We have a shattered world around us, and we must help to rebuild it. We must strive for a sane and just peace.
Oh, I see. His old school teacher. Well, that is Mr. Chips. You see, he's come out of retirement to teach these children. And all over England, the older men have come back to their professions in order to release the younger men to the service.
Now, I just want to see how much you can remember from last time.
It's foolishness. In fact, this boy has done things which any number of teenagers have in the past. He's mixed with some unsavoury characters and repeated silly propaganda. None of this should be against the law.
Revolution!
We have a terrific task ahead of us.
Revolution!
We have a shattered world around us.
Revolution! Revolution! Revolution!
And we must help to rebuild it. We must strive for a sane and just peace.
Revolution! Revolution!
Watch him, David Cameron. We must work together to reduce the deficit. That's what's going on. Reducing the deficit. I read about the deficit. Do you know about the deficit, big guy? Do you know Britain's debt? No, £1.5 trillion. That's how much the UK owes somebody.
For it's here in the glow of the log fire that visitors might learn to play darts. Shove halfpenny or cribbage, partnered by a local who could be a lord or a labourer.
No shite. I have worked my whole life, and I've worked 2 jobs since I've been 12 years old, and I think it's a disgrace that these people are sitting on their fat arses. They're spending their dole checks on alcohol and cigarettes. It's a darn right disgrace.
You're missing the point, man. They're spending it on alcohol and cigarettes. Highly taxable goods.
Happy Friday to y'all. I'm going in the house to make some good historical content. I don't hang out anymore. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and that gives you a lot of leeway because I do a lot of crazy shit.
The husband looks after everything else. The women continue to wear their traditional dress. To wear Western clothes would be unacceptable to all of them on religious grounds.
Now, regardless how you take my speech, whether you just shrug it off as malarkey or Fox News talking points, I encourage you to think about it.
And I am a Somali, and I came here in London as a refugee. Either your child is in a gang, or your child being innocently killed. standing somewhere and he's been mistaken identity.
He said we was under arrest and said anything we said would be taken down and used in evidence against us. A police car pulled up in the centre of the road when a uniformed officer came across and escorted us to the car. We was taken down to the police station, searched, questioned and charged. The charge was suspected person of loitering with intent to commit an arrestable offence. After that we was put in a cell where we stayed for about 3 to 4 hours until my father came and collected us.
I know now that kids in Kenya, school is, they put that first, you understand? They put education first because they think that that's what's going to take them out of the slums and everything. When you get sent back to your country by your parents and that, I'm not going to lie to you, it's the worst feeling. You're feeling like, it's like feeling like you're going to prison. Okay, because your mum's the judge, she sent you back, she knows how long you're going for. You can't come back until the judge has let you free, do you understand?
I was urged by everybody to avoid looking for scapegoats. I have not looked to blame anyone, but where, having considered the evidence, I considered that individuals have fallen below a proper standard in carrying out their important roles in protecting concertgoers.
But the immigration was not inevitable. This was due to a state of the law of this country, to which there is no parallel in any other country. This was due to the government of this country, and I take my share of the blame for it, deferring for too long to bring the law of this country into accord with reality.
There are those who want to sanitize history, who want to reinvent history. The truth is, all we are now is a product of all that came before, good, bad, and ugly. And you can't simply wipe away the past. This is not year zero, and to believe otherwise is frankly Orwellian.
Some of the problems of St Anne's are apparent enough. But people are not starving, not in rags, not sleeping in the open. It's difficult to realise to what extent many people are deprived of things everyone else takes for granted.
I don't know where you get your historical facts from. I really don't.
I got my historical fact from, I think, is it Mr. Trevelyan? Is in British history.
Oh,
that's far
Mr.
better
George
than...
Trevelyan knows nothing then, and I'll say that. Because it so happens that these penniless whites, as you call them, didn't come out because they didn't have homes or because of any kind of persecution. They were sent out as officials of the Dutch East India Company to establish a refreshment station for ships passing around passing around the bottom of the Cape. Just as the Dutch settlers were sent out to America by the Dutch West India Company to settle and to make a refreshment station here. Now, I think if you had to turn around to those Dutch settlers who came out and said that they came out because they were penniless, they'd be just as indignant as I am. And as you say that the white settlers came and pushed the Bantu back,
yes,
it's a fact that the whites went into the interior of Africa and didn't come into contact never even saw a Bantu until 1795, which was practically 100 years, more than 100 years after they had arrived in South Africa.
And that's the great ethnic and religious diversity. As our friend Mr. Hamilton, or Dr. Hamilton, was noting, there were immigrants from Germany, Scotland, Ireland, there were Quakers, there were Roman Catholics, Congregationalists, and then later on Methodists and Baptists. So generally speaking, it's a reasonably pluralistic society with a relatively high tolerance for diversity, though New Englanders in some ways, particularly in early colonial times, are a little bit less tolerant.
I'm in a Methodist family, and I went to a Church of England school, so I was quite a devout Christian. But then at the age of about 13, I found that I disagreed with the sermons a little, in small details. And by the time I was 16, I had no common ground at all. They were talking about different things completely from what I was talking about. So I left the church, I left the whole of Christianity, and I'm now just trying to build up again on a basis.
And I'm very afraid that if I talk a lot about my religion and hear other people speaking about too, they might convince me that there are certain things in my religion which are not right. And I don't want to be convinced because I've been brought up for 17 years believing that my religion is right. And here all of a sudden 34 people are telling me, well, this is wrong and this is wrong with your religion. And I don't want them. I don't want to be convinced.
Mrs. Ali is one of the few Pakistani women to speak English.
I'm staff nurse. I took my training in West Pakistan, and as you know, everybody like to go in other countries. And I was hoping to come in London. I come here and I'm working as a staff nurse in London hospital. And after that, I had a baby here. You know, according to our customs, we are not supposed to choose our husband by ourselves. Our parents, they arrange. And each parents, they go towards each other and they ask that we want to marry with our girl to your boy. Are you happy or not? Then they choose. They say it's all right, and then our marriages, they are arranged marriages there.
This has been expressed by many thoughtful observers of the human condition across cultures and throughout human history. A famous passage from the New Testament reads, "Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye?" While an ancient Japanese proverb conveys a similar message. Though you see the 7 defects of others, we do not see our own 10 defects. Deceiving ourselves as to our flawed character is sometimes referred to as internal masking.
So fucking bad joke there. Bad joke.
We arrest drug dealers. We criminalize people, mainly black and brown people, for possessing small amounts of drugs like weed. We do this because drugs are bad. Unless, of course, it's your government that's dealing the drugs.
Shout out to the Spice Man. Shout out to the Manchester Spice Cadets. Bro, what are you doing? Spice Man. What are you doing, Spice Man? Spice Man. What are you fucking about? Yo, he's here.
Like that time the British Empire got China hooked on opium. In 1800, 300 metric tons of opium was shipped into China. 4 decades later, this had increased to 3,500 metric tons of opium. Opium was a highly addictive drug with similar effects to modern-day heroin.
Hello, fella. Hello. Mate. Hello. You okay, mate? Hello. Hello. Hello, mate. Hello. You okay? Listen, have a sit down. Make yourself comfortable. Okay? Yeah? Alright.
Long-term users could experience liver, kidney, and heart problems and could die of withdrawal. Opium use had been banned by the Chinese Emperor Yongzheng in 1729 after he saw the effects of addiction on his citizens, and again in 1796 by the Emperor Jiaqing after everyone ignored the first ban. But Britain continued smuggling opium into China.
Do you have any country you don't like?
England.
If you're China and you wanted to disrupt another country,
oh wow,
wouldn't you reward the dumbest possible shit on that app? Twerking, people doing stupid dances. You want the next level of youth to go, I can be famous doing something that's truly worthless to society.
We live in an age where some talk of the importance of history, but really mean propaganda. When someone is suggesting, in essence, that you educate yourselves, know the doctrine, learn the mantra, and toe the line.
It was simply too profitable not to. The opium monopoly out of India was worth £981,000 in 1831. That's the equivalent of about £100 million today.
The nature of British colonial administration. So let's start out first by looking at that first category of difference, the character of the people who migrated to the colonies.
The principal came out and gave us a heartfelt speech about equality and standing together. He began to list countless races, such as Latino, Asian, expressing how much they matter and how important they are. But never once did he mention a race or identity that reflects me, or half the kids that were in the class. Now, members of the board, I know you haven't been to school in a while, and I know none of you, or most of you, don't have any kids left in the school district. But you must admit how uncomfortable it will be to be characterized just by your skin color on the first day of school, and be thought that you were wrong just because of your skin color.
There is a kind of half-assed liberal idea that while colonialism wasn't great, at least Britain gave India the trains. And maybe that's something they should be thankful for. After all, trains are pretty useful, especially in the 7th largest country on Earth. So, colonialism, maybe not all that bad?
Why do I say that? Well, basically, the strategy behind the Conservative government in Britain is to try to shift Britain into a system which will generate wealth better, which will give incentives, and we're certainly on the part of the Conservative government. There's a strong belief that you'll get a trickle-down effect from moves in that direction. And in addition, there is the belief that it was important to do something pretty radical to redress the slow relative economic decline that Britain has been suffering over quite a long period of time. Now, I think there was a great deal of self-conscious awareness about the fact that if one was going to make a more market-based society work effectively, this would involve a greater degree of economic inequality.
Tony B is a bad young brother, in actual fact.
Suggesting that they're going to take their few precious bits that they managed to smuggle out. Remember the lessons. Remember how the Nazis took out gold teeth. The answer to the question that was asked, when Jewish migrants were taken, and this is the biggest crisis since then, it gave up. Now, I'm sorry, we have to do better, and we can think, not just children, no refugee ever fails, unless we're talking about the criminals. There's a wedge which are criminals, I'm not talking about them.
The disaster near Tandoa Dam Junction. The ruthless tribesmen had started a reign of terror.
ISIS was able to maneuver at will for months at a stretch within these migration corridors, using tanks from the Cold War and Toyota pickup trucks against the world's so-called superpowers.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know. And do you think that the American government is that petty?
Whether it be the Clinton or Bill and Melinda Gates foundations, nonprofit organizations such as Médecins du Monde, governmental donations taken from income tax pools, the trillion-dollar skims from debt-based currency creation by central banks, or the carbon tax, hundreds of billions of dollars have been taken.
Even in all of Europe, most of Europe is using American platforms. So that's okay for Europe. You know, that's not a big issue. Now, and obviously that's fine for America. They love having that control. But now all of a sudden you've got a Chinese company that's going into America. You know, they have TikTok, and that's a huge issue for the Americans because for the first time, they don't have that control. And I think, you know, and we have to go back as well to know the history. When you look at, you know, Facebook and Google were in China before, about 10 years ago. However, you know, when there was a terrorist attack in Xinjiang, you know, they were basically using Facebook in order to organize these terrorist attacks. Now we're banning that. That's why those are banned. You know, it's not because, you know, oh, we don't want the Chinese to understand about, you know, let's say Tiananmen Square or
the
whatever.
Kardashians.
Yeah, it's more, we just can't control it. And I think that's what's happening right now. And this is going to be a very interesting theme to continue over the next few years.
Only to be directly invested in multilateral organizations who then inform and direct the policies of Western liberal states that are intended to gradually and systematically eradicate these very people.
That I can't even explain how scary that is. I can't even explain. And you then just be thankful that your kids and everybody woke up the next day. You can do it. And then with us, it's the same.
Revolution! Revolution!
Australia, New Zealand, South America, North America.
From Libya, you come to Syria, to Iraq, to Afghanistan, to Somalia. I mean,
from China all the way to Spain, under the Ottoman Caliphate, the Abbasid, the Umayyad Caliphate, it has happened in the past.
The sort of Britain that we want is a Britain where the Sharia is implemented.
How is it that we can now deny just safety?
Whether it be France, whether it be other countries, whether it be European countries.
So there is a serious political problem in the Muslim world.
If you want to change something, you have to be a part of something. You have to get involved, you have to educate yourself on it, and you have to make a change from inside. It's all good and well having opinions saying no one listens, but if you're not there to be listened to, who's going to listen?
During the war, I rested my trust in the British people. Time after time, I warned them of the dangers ahead.
On, Pakistanis and Indians.